kids. It seems like somebody wanted a round two, so here we are again. Yeah, I would have released this video earlier, but I didn't want to only respond to one person's response to this. I wanted to wait until both parties had had a chance to go round again before, doing my refereeing, and so yeah, I had to wait. And unsurprisingly, that means it's also 5 o'clock in the freaking morning again. Because apparently I just can't catch a break. I can't actually deal with, you know, I can't actually catch these two at a time when would be a reasonable time to make a video. It has to be 5 o'clock in the freaking morning for me to do that. But anyway, so I had a more intellectual response plan for this. Um, I was gonna bring up the argument pyramid there, but as it turns out, I looked up the argument pyramid, and the argument pyramid doesn't actually cover what is going on here, because it's not just in the vector of ad hominem. It's not just in the vector of not address of you know appealing to tone, although there are bits and pieces of that going on. It's not just um, it's not just making a counter argument that completely misses the point, um, or going, "Grr, you have contradictions," and therefore, it's um, it's actually just both parties operating on completely different frameworks and not actually being willing to address the other party. They are addressing literally the construct of the other party they have in their heads and not actually fucking listening to each other. And it's more than just not addressing what the other party is saying. It's actually that they okay, I'll stop myself there because I actually want to have a decent go at this before the end of the era. Um and yes, I'm doing another response video to this because, well, I, like V, also miss the old school days of the response video, and more to the point, I haven't had content on my channel in a while, and this is actually seemingly as yet unending well of potential content. So here we be. Um, moving right along though. So the thing that's happening is both parties know the standard protocol when it comes to debates. They know step one is to define your terms. JSG mentions it several times. You didn't accept my definition, or you didn't correct my erroneous definition of you. And V also, I believe, mentions it several times. Of we are using different definitions because reasons and so on, and that would be fine if this were the first go round, but the thing of it is, y'all have made as of this recording 4 bastarding video responses between you. Um or rather, I think V's most recent stream was the 4th one because he, like me, has taken to started numbering these. I think JSG is on video number 3, but regardless, we're on round 2, and there have been 4 videos exchanged between you. Um, that being the case, you would think that the very first thing I would have to do here wouldn't be the obvious, but as it happens, Jay, you said that V never corrected himself, or never defined his terms, or never explained that he was using a different definition from you. But just because he didn't do it on Twitter doesn't mean he didn't do it. The videos that are being exchanged between you should have some impact on the way the conversation is moving, yeah? Like, am I crazy? The videos being exchanged between you should count as y'all defining your terms in greater detail? It, hello? Is this thing on? Like, am I completely? Maybe I'm just completely foobar. Never mind. But like, Jay, the correction that you were looking for was presented, I think, in V's first video response to you, because he literally said, like, I am using this definition and not that definition, and that's all well and good. Um, Second thing, V, you do keep going on tangents that are not relevant to the person you're actually addressing and only relevant to the people you think are tangentially associated with the person you're addressing. And Jay has rightfully called you out on it, and yet you still keep doing it. But th- there's a couple other minor things too. For example, when Jay says things like, "I have the dumbest enemies," he's being rhetorical. He's being bantery. He's bigging up the scale between the two of you because it's snappy. It's similar to the kind of stuff that the Channel Awesome guys used to do when they would have crossover reviews and would have, ostensible fights over shit. Um, when he says you're an enemy, he doesn't mean literally you are his enemy. He means effectively interlocutor, I think, or the other combatant in the ring, I think, is what he's getting at. In thing you have to understand about JSG, and this holds true even though he's gone full on belief perseverance in other ways. He's very snappy and very pop culture focused, dude. Like he makes jokes, he makes references, he makes you know he bigs himself up. He bigs himself up as an entertainer in the same way that you do. He's just a bit more um he's just a bit more playful in how he does it because he like me can make a argument using pop culture references and so on. And yeah, no, you're not getting any points by saying, "Well, I'm not your enemy." I doubt that he genuinely considered you a straight out enemy here either. I think he just considered you an idiot. Um, and if I'm wrong, then perhaps this will be my turn to get into the ring, and we'll go around this a couple more freaking times. But yeah, no. As far as I can tell, that is one consideration. But yeah, back to V and his failure to allow the terms being defined to actually define the terms thing. Um, when when he was addressing in, I believe, his second stream, it was the first response video from JSG, but it was the stream that he did after the response video. Um, he comes up against JSG's definition of equality, the classic equality of principle / moral sentimental equality thing, and he literally goes, "That's not equality. That's that's civic nationalism." And I have to tell you, V, in this context, those are relatively synonymous. There are people who refer to that same idea, that same mechanic, that same framework, by different words. In the same way as it is disingenuous for JSG to see you defining what you mean by quality, vis-a-vis meritocracy, skills, etc., and go, what you're saying is quality isn't quality. What you're saying is quality is actually skills or merits. Yeah, no, those are fairly synonymously paired in an informal context. And what's more, you have the other interlocutor in the argument telling you that that's the definition, that's the vector of definitions they are working with. So neither of you gets to go, well, you're using that word wrong because that word means this, and you can't use that word to mean that. No, you both are using an informal vernacular which makes completely consistent sense, and you're telling each other, or at least you indirectly did, what you mean. You're defining your terms, and neither of you, for some reason, is taking the definition. You're not actually accepting the definition that the other is using, but you're also not picking apart each other's definitions either. But as far as uncharitability goes, I will give it to V. He has been far more charitable in this context than JSG. Because JSG, in no way, in no equally equivalent informal context, can you look at the word quality people and go, oh, so you're measuring skulls and checking genomes, are you now? No, that's not at all what anyone is saying, and is certainly not what V is saying. He gave his definition of what he means, and you refuse to take it. Although I suppose it's fair play because he is not taking the fact that you are not using equality in the Marxian sense, you're using equality in the bargain basement egalitarian sense. However, JSG, you are making one major faux pas that I didn't spot in my previous video response. Namely, you claim that your definition of equality is the left wing, or what the left is saying about equality or about equality. And would that it were so, but neither of us is the standard bearer of the left. Destiny is not the standard bearer of the left, being, a bog standard social democrat, similar to us, although more on the social justice side. And Short Fat Otaku is not the standard bearer of the left, despite the fact that he has remained fairly consistently in the classical liberal school of thinking, even as Sargon and V have drifted. So, yeah, no. People like you, me, Destiny, Short Fat Otaku, we are not the standard bearers of the left. And it is kind of disingenuous for you to say so. It is also quite disingenuous for you to say that the right, or the people engaging in the culture war, because you did specifically allude to that, are going to slippery slope their way into measuring people's genetics or their skull shape or some shit. Because here's the thing. And I realize that most of this response video is probably going to be me yelling at JSG, because he is being several tiers more disingenuous at this point, whereas V has just kind of backed off and started enjoying the return of the old school video response culture, and all the more power to him. Even though he is also still talking past JSG, even though he is refusing to accept definitions, even as the person he's interlocking with is defining his terms, as anyone should do in an argument, especially when there's confusion. Even though all of those things are true, J, and I'm saying this as someone who is probably closer to J on the political spectrum than I am to V at this point, because, I'm classically liberal in principle and a social democrat in practice, in the actual Nordic model sense, not in the Soc Dem being equal to Dem Soc sense that people use it to get out of the admission that they are socialist bullshit. When I say I want the Nordic model or something like it exported to the US and the UK, I mean the Nordic model, and as yet only the Nordic model. I don't mean use social democracy as a excuse to get the foot in the door and then push further to democratic socialism. I mean replicate the Nordic model, because the Nordic model appears to be working. But that's neither here nor there. My point is that I'm just about where JSG is. We would quibble on a couple things, like the aforementioned "Don't Say Gay" bill in the last video. But yeah, no, policy-wise, we're probably not that dissimilar, and we're not even that dissimilar philosophically, I would imagine. But here's the thing, JSG. What you are doing, and I ran into this problem with someone in your comment section as well, who was basically, I think, giving the same argument you would give in such a situation. And I'm going to reference Antifa and Antifa's way of thinking when I do this. But just like you are not accusing me of actually being a Nazi, when you've gone Godwin on him this time, or all these times, you are just drawing a parallel and hoping he will spot his mistake. I am doing the same thing here. What you are doing with the term quality, JSG, is rather similar to what Antifa members do that allows them to group classical liberals, libertarians, and basically anyone who isn't an anarcho-communist or anarcho-syndicalist of some description into fascism, going so far as to say things like social democracy is the left edge of fascism, which again gives lie to the fact that you can claim to be speaking for the entire left or the entire reasonable left when you are saying what you are saying. Like it or not, Jay, we are minorities on the left, and I'm still saying that I'm on the left because, frankly, my relative position on the graph hasn't changed much. It's just the rest of the left has gone insane, and I do think it's worthwhile to maintain some reasonable voices on the left because otherwise we will cede the ground entirely to the crazies. But that's neither here nor there. But what you are doing, back on point, is with the term quality is very similar to what Antifa does that allows them to conflate classical liberals and fascists. Namely, they operate on the assumption that all hierarchies, especially individualistic ones, will lead effectively to the strongman dictator at the top. And fascism needs the strongman dictator at the top. Therefore, the only way to prevent fascism is to oppose all hierarchy and to oppose even the very concept of strength or any sort of moral hierarchy that takes strength into account. Therefore, anyone who so much as believes there should be some kind of hierarchy is a softcore fascist, even if they don't realize it. Ergo, classical liberals, libertarians, and etc. are all softcore fascists, either that they don't realize it or that they are just being disingenuous and being useful idiots. You're doing the same thing with quality, because just like the term equality can be used in multiple ways, i.e., it can refer to the Marxian kind, or it can refer to the egalitarian classical liberal kind of equality of, sentimental or moral worth or equality of opportunity. So too, the term quality can be used in an entirely reasonable and accurate manner without ever so much as mentioning equality of genetic material or equality, or rather quality of substance in like a racial or identitarian perspective. And V has given you several definitions of quality that have bumfuck nothing to do with, and then we guess the untermention, six profit. And to say that all things that focus on quality or that decentralize equality in the favor of quality will eventually lead to gas the untermention is full tilt crazy, man. It is, because hardly anyone, even on the right, is full Richard Spencer. I mean, the alt-right is still a joke. The actual self-identifying alt-right is still considered a joke. Jean-Francois Gary P. and Richard Spencer are still considered basically, wannabe cartoon supervillains that even Doofenshmirtz, Draken, and Dr. Evil would find embarrassing and would probably take their lunch money in evil science school. And the fact that the term alt-right has been overused or misapplied to things that don't equate to Richard Spencer and JFK doesn't mean that that isn't what the alt-right is. And, you know, I guess you can say, well, they're still Andrew Anglin, they're still skinheads, but what sort of legitimacy do they... What sort of legitimacy are they afforded? That's the question. And apologies if my voice sounds different. There was an editing issue where there was like 5 seconds of silence, and I didn't know how to fix it. But point being, J.F. Garapi and Richard Spencer, apart from being the voice of the culture war on CNN because they studied for a fight against Nazis and not enough Nazis showed up, so they went with the only one they could find. But J.F. Garapi and Richard Spencer are treated like the wannabe cartoon supervillains they are. They're so embarrassing that Dr. Drac and Dr. Doofenshmirtz and Dr. Evil would mutually find them detestable and beat them up to take their lunch money in evil science school. But seriously, what planet are you on where pulling Godwin's law is anything other than a hysterical and rather moralistic comparison? Because you're not simply saying at random this is like a Nazi position. You've even talked yourself into it at length. How there are parallels between these two things, and I already went over and explained how that's bullshit. Namely, that it's similar to what the Antifa goons do when they say, you know, well, fascism requires a strongman dictator, therefore, and a dominance hierarchy. Therefore, if we just abolish all hierarchies and come out as, as completely against the very notion of strength as hard as possible, that will end fascism, and that's moreover the only way to end fascism. Therefore, any ideology that has a dominance hierarchy or a love of or even appreciation of strength in it, well, then that's just softcore fascism, and therefore classical liberals are like fascists. That's effectively what you've done with the term equality there. You've gone, well, any quality judgment will automatically lead to racial purity, skull measuring, and gassing the intervention. Just know, dude, that there is no such implication. There's not even the beginnings of such an implication. Nazis are feared hysterically by those in power for moralistic reasons, and laughed at by everyone who actually cares what's going on the ground. So, where exactly are you getting this? Was J.F. Garapi or Richard Spencer a shit to you on Twitter too? Like, is that seriously where we're at? Where you can't even understand why there are more charitable interpretations of the use of the term quality person than, oh, so you want to do racial purity testing? Yeah, no. Yes, V was stupid for foregoing the egalitarian position of, equality of sentiment or equality of, moral worth. And yes, he calls himself a right-winger now, but he hasn't drifted that far from his original, 2016, 2017 position of equality of opportunity, and he has said as much in several of these response videos. So, I don't know why you're choosing to fight a dragon that is not there, my friend, but yeah, it's not there. The swastikas aren't being raised. The Nazis are not on the verge of a comeback, no matter how butthurt about the possibility of that Hollywood gets erroneously. Nazis are at best a joke now. The ones that, people actually give two fucks about. Except for maybe the scary biker dudes, but scary biker dudes don't give two fucks what the political compass is doing at any given moment, and we all know it, because those guys actually are in a cult, ironically. Um, but if the best case scenario you have is fringe bikers and, you know, Richard Spencer and JF Garapy, yeah, there is almost no threat of a resurgence of that kind of wankery. Nowhere. None. Yet. Ne point. But, yeah, more to the point, even if there was a possibility that the person you're arguing with has told you on several occasions what terms they are using and how they are using them. Granted, you have also told them in no uncertain terms the terms you are using and why you are using them, and he has ignored you as well. So he is not blameless here. But it is worth noting that the term equality, as you say, means more than just the Marxian equality or the equality of outcome. It also means egalitarianism or equality of sentiment, morality, and opportunity. But so too, the term quality person can in no charitable or unhysterical way be taken to mean we are guessing the Untermenschen und measuring people's skulls for phrenology, jawohl. Yeah, no. It, certainly not coming from thee. And no, there isn't some necessarily slippery slope there, because just as you pointed out in your most recent response, that Marxist equality is actually anathema to equality of opportunity or equality of sentiments, so too the ghastly untermention definition of quality is very much a bureaucratic anathema to the various kinds of meritocracy that Thee is talking about. And no, discriminating on the basis of skill, like a gamer, you know, the classic get good scrub approach, does not lead, no matter how much the game's journal media wants it to be the case, does not lead to Sieg-heiling as anything other than a way of mocking the Nazis' producer style. So no, you are categorically wrong, and you're both arguing past frameworks. You 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 both have defined the terms you're using, and yet, despite the fact that you are nominally responding to each other, you don't seem to actually take on board the fact that you've been corrected on multiple vectors now. Now, V has gone off on several tangents that have nothing to do with anything, but you, JSG, are going off on morally charged tangents that have nothing to do with anything, and are in no way a charitable interpretation. And if we're judging, you know, if I'm doing the Russian judging version of, you know, debate analysis, I must say V is being the more charitable one. Doesn't mean that he's not filling dead air with a bunch of, you know, irrelevant anecdotes and assuming you're an SJW when you're not one. And it doesn't mean that he is refusing to register the difference that he should know between the Marxist definition of equality and the egalitarian one. But such is the way the cookie crumbles. You both are idiots, but you are being several tiers more idiotic because you are being dehumanizing as well as ignorant, frankly, i.e., to assume that there are Nazis around every corner or communists around every corner when there categorically are not is dehumanizing to anyone who isn't one of those things. And let's be honest here, even though we would both like if the left followed more of the egalitarian model or the classical liberal or social democratic model, it doesn't. The communists are more numerous than us and more potent and in higher positions of authority and more impact on society right at this particular moment. Would that it were not so, but it is so, Jay. So, again, I realize maybe this should have just been a JSG response video. I don't know. But, again, I'm responding to stupid, and as and when I find it, and V's stupidity has been incidental, not formative to his entire bloody argument. And, yeah, frankly, Jay, while he's still wrong, because he still assumes you're a social justice warrior or a communist or some other flavor of that, because you claim to be on the left, and that it must be said that that is bullshit. So too, you are attributing things to him purely because he is on the right, or because you have preconceptions about his audience. Which, just stopping here for a minute, because something must be said, dude. It was not so very long ago, as in, like, just before the passage of the Don't Say Gay bill, that you were on relatively solid speaking terms with several of us from, every which side of every the political compass that happened to oppose social justice and wokeness. And, like, it really wasn't. Is it is it really that hard to remember that far back? Like, I took you for more intelligent than that. You've spoken to several of the people on the ground who who nominally would consider themselves slightly to the right of you, and agrees with you on, like, the communists and the SJWs being shits. So, like, again, hi. It really shouldn't be that hard to remember. Oh wait, yeah. When the media says we're Nazis, we're not, and that's moralistic, hysterical, and dehumanizing to proclaim that there are way more Nazis than there actually are, or ever could conceivably be in this modern epoch. So, yeah, no, I I'm trying to be even-handed because, again, V said stupid shit too, and he also failed to have the argument on terms that were being presented to him, and also failed to internalize any sort of correction that was meaningful at any point. But as far as that vector goes, you are both making the error of using the left and right as a monolith and failing to determine any differentiation between the person you're talking to and the spirit of the right and the spirit of the left. But as far as strawmanning the spirit of the right or the spirit of the left goes, Jay, yours is more egregious and more avoidably uncharitable and disingenuous. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up soon. I swear to God, because I'm cycling back through again. But yeah, that's the upshot. They once more have talked past each other, but Jay is talking from the bottom of the cliff. But I hope at least that these guys will start making new mistakes instead of repeating the ones I've already addressed in more and more and more egregious fashion, so that I will at least have something more interesting to talk about when I inevitably do a part 3 of this. And yes, I am clout chasing using these response videos, and yes, I am hoping that this balloons my channel up a little bit, or at least makes it alive where it was previously dead. But as V has pointed out on several occasions, that is simply how the YouTube game is played. And I am to the left of V, but to the right of JSG, so I'm in the perfect position to call strikes and balls here. Wonder if any of them will actually get a hit at some point, instead of swinging the bat in the air 2 miles away from each other's heads. But I'll bring this to an end now. Cheers. I've been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and this has been an authentication. Cheers, guys.